I'm doing well. I'm doing well, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that you can hear me and let you know that I'm here. I was waiting in the waiting room for a while, so I didn't know you were aware that I'm here.
Great, perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, we have the meeting is being recorded, so we will call to order the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, fellow board members, and appreciate the members of the public that are taking time to join us this morning. With that, I will call the roll. Dr. Way, didn't see Dr. Way. Representative Will. Representative Benavides.
Here.
Good morning. Representative Exum.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mayor Pro Tem Joseph. Good morning.
Good morning, present.
Commissioner Chimino.
Present.
Good morning. Director Redhorse.
Good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Limerick.
Present.
Good morning. Director Barry.
Here.
Good morning. Mr. Benitez.
Present.
Good morning. Ms. Nelson. Terry Nelson on yet? Do not see Ms. Nelson. Dr. Gonzalez.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. And sitting in for Director Garcia is Dion Williams. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, and Tim Mock, Deputy Director for DNR, is present. And with that, we have a quorum. Good morning, everybody. Next, we've got agenda item 3, review, approve the August agenda. Board members, let me ask you if, and I don't know that we would amend the agenda here, but I know that we've got a very robust agenda this morning. We may have some of the individuals that are proposing, the actual proposers for some of the cases that we will introduce later on today. For the sake of time for them, do you mind if I invite the proposers when they're available to maybe say a couple words, or do we want to wait until later on in the agenda when we bring these issues up? I'm thinking like we've got Commissioner Soups from Delta County, who is the proposal for the Delta County cases.
I'm not opposed.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to doing that if they're all there. I don't want us to do one and then come back to it back and forth.
Okay.
But as soon as you get all the speakers for one of them, I'm not personally opposed to hearing from them. I just don't want to go back and forth between the other business.
Yes, okay, that's a very good point. Thank you. Okay, and then I'd actually like to add as the next agenda item on this agenda here. So after we approve the agenda, or I'm sorry, approve the July meeting summary, an agenda item for announcements. And with that, are there any other edits to the agenda? And this would be for board member announcements. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move to approve the agenda with the discussed changes.
Got a motion?
Second?
And there's a second. Okay, we've got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Next, agenda item 4, review and approve the July meeting summary. Are there any comments about the July meeting summary? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the July meeting summary.
Well, I'll second again. I'm in a mood for seconding. So
Perfect. We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The July summary is approved. Okay, next on the agenda, board member announcements. I would like to recognize Dr. Gonzalez. Since the last time we met, Dr. Gonzalez was appointed as our new Colorado State historian. So big congratulations there. That's very exciting to have such a distinguished guest now on our board. Dr. Gonzalez, anything you want to say?
Just want to say thank you. That's really nice of you, Tim. Thanks.
I was very proud of you.
Thanks.
And then Representative Benavides, I'm wondering if you would have the honor of giving the announcement you just gave opening here, so we have that in the official record regarding the rescinding of the proclamations.
Sure, and I just wanted to add my congratulations to Dr. Gonzalez. That's exciting. I've read many of the articles about you, so I'm looking forward to seeing you as our new historian.
Yes.
Thank you, Representative.
And this is something that I'm going to talk to you about. Is not just myself, but I think Commissioner Wheelock helped on this, as well as Director Redhorse. But I first found out about this from a friend of that I've known for a long time, but so has Dr. Limerick, is Rick Williams. He had been retired and formerly the head of the American Indian Scholarship Program, and he is a historian on the side, like many of us. And he had done a presentation a couple of years ago, and I knew about the proclamation that Governor Evans, the territorial governor at that time in 1864, in June of 1864, had proclaimed that any Indians that went to one of, I think it was 5 forts, they would be protected by the military. And that's how the Cheyenne Arapaho who went to Sandy Creek were supposed to be protected, but weren't ultimately. And they were about the only ones that followed that proclamation. But then in August, Governor Evans issued a second proclamation saying that because Natives didn't take advantage of that offer, then everybody in Colorado could shoot any Indian, shoot and kill any Indian on sight. And he didn't have the authority to pay them, but they could take whatever property the Indian had on them. And so, as you can imagine, and as a result of that August proclamation, many Natives fled the state because they were being killed on sight. And so there was no record that those had been rescinded, those proclamations. And I had our legislative council do some research, and they found that when we became a state in 1876, that the territorial laws became the laws of the state until we adopted our Constitution. And proclamations were akin to executive orders, meaning they were issued by the state top executive, so they had the force of law, and it was never rescinded. So this signing ceremony was for Governor Polis to rescind both of those executive orders. And it marked, it was, essentially very, very long overdue. but it also was a statement about the many natives who were killed as a result of those proclamations. And it was, it was a very positive thing, but it was also a very mournful thing. And the celebration started with a prayer for those lives lost. So I think it was a step forward for our state in recognizing some of the things in our history that most people don't know anything about. So, and I don't know if either Commissioner Wheelock or Director Red Horse wanted to add anything to that.
Sure, Commissioner Wheelock.
I hesitate to go before someone as important as Ms. Red Horse, but I will quickly. I guess I'll try to be the opening act. And that is simply to say that by 1865, Governor Evans had lost his job over this. And that was 156 years ago. And for 156 years, this has been known. And it never got to the top of anyone's things to do list until now. And I think that statement is alone is why it is so important that it was done, because it signified perhaps an apathy that we've had about these issues, about these cultural issues until this time, and that it's a great step forward to recognize that wrong and to begin to make the smallest amount of rectification, which of course is what this, and a large part of what this board is about. And I'd like to thank you for your service here, because I know these have been pretty interminable meetings just getting to this point. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Director Red Horse, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative Benavides and Commissioner Redlock. I just continue that this is an important step forward, and acknowledging the atrocities that occurred in our histories is important in order for us to move together as a community, and to start the healing. I think the state of Colorado has done a lot this past year in terms of the legislation that has passed, and signing of the rescinding of these proclamations. So I hope to continue to move forward on this positive path that we are, and acknowledging and partnering with tribal nations and working and serving with the American Indian and Alaska Native community.
Great. Thank each of you for that update and for your role in that ceremony. Thank you. Any other board announcements? Okay, seeing none, let me just check in real quick here and see if we have Commissioner Don Supps available from Delta County. I don't see the commissioner. Or is Tiana Limpy available regarding the Mount Mestahay proposal? Okay, we will move forward with the regular agenda and have a further conversation about those new proposals later on. So that now brings us to agenda item fundamentally agenda item 6 here. It's 5 on your packets, and that is the final consideration for USBGN case 5054. This is to rename VH Pasture Reservoir to Elk Springs Reservoir. Just as a reminder here, the reason for the proposal is to change the name to reflect the current land use. And this is a reservoir located on private property in San Miguel County. So with that, we are at the final consideration stage for case number 5054. As per our bylaws, or I'm sorry, our process document, our draft process document, we are to take a look at this phase of the process during which the board shall decide by vote to approve, deny, or table a proposal. We will discuss the proposal and evaluate the proposal based on the criteria outlined in Appendix B. And obviously we will take public comment one final time. With that, let me start and see if there is any public comment for USBGN case 5054. And if so, please raise your hand, and Ms. Abad can help identify those that might be interested.
I see no hands raised, Tim.
Okay. With that, we will close public comment for case 5054. And I will turn this over to the board. Board members, what are your thoughts? Was that Miss Berry?
Yes, I just have a process question. I didn't attend the last meeting. I read the meeting summary, so I just wanted to know if I should vote on this since I didn't hear all the testimony.
I believe, I think the way that we're operating in what's beneficial about recording these is that we are able to, as board members, go back and review that as well as the documents. I think spacing these out also kind of gives us an opportunity to make sure that we plug in and provide any feedback. So unless other board members feel otherwise, I think those present would be able to vote regardless of last meeting's attendance. Thoughts?
I agree.
There we go.
Agreed.
All right. Representative Benavides, did I see your hand up?
Yes, and I guess, are we going to have discussion and then a motion, or? Yes, so discussion.
Yes.
Just for discussion, I am not inclined to support this. I think after discussing with the proponent of this proposal at our last meeting, that this really doesn't change his conservation easement that allows for, I guess, elk hunting or sanctuary. I'm not sure exactly how he called it.
Elk grazing, I think, yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't think that it changes that at all. I think it was clear that he could, if he wanted to call it by another name, put that on his property. But there was no real compelling reason other than he recently bought the property and obtained a conservation easement that I could tell that warrants the changing of all the maps and everything else to do with that. And there was at least one opponent of it. So I just don't think there's sufficient reasons to adopt this proposal.
Okay.
I agree with.
Tim, this is Perry. Can you hear me?
Oh, hi, Mr. Representative Will, good to see you, and let the record show that you are in attendance. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was there when you first did roll call. I thought you heard me, but I guess you didn't.
Whoops, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm on the phone, but I had a doctor's appointment that I took 4 months to get, so I thought I better not cancel it. But anyway, I'm in agreement on that. Actually, with Representative Benavides, I see no reason to change that. So,
Okay, Representative Exum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm also in agreement, mainly for the reason that there wasn't a lot of outreach to do this proposal. So I'm in agreement with not supporting it.
Okay. And Director Berry, did I hear you agree there?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Limerick.
Yeah, just to chime in, I don't see a compelling reason that I could either speak to myself or speak to the other members and saying, well, now here's a reason why this should change. I just don't. It's kind of a Mother Hubbard blank cupboard moment when I try to think what I might offer as a way of a justification or argument. So I'm with everyone else.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Thoughts? Okay, with that, then I think we're headed in a direction that we're ready for a motion. Representative Benavides.
Thank you. I move that we reject US BGN case number 5054 and the request to change the name of the VH Pastor Reservoir.
Okay,
Second.
got a motion and we've got a second by Representative Will. Any further discussion? I see A.G. Beatty. Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. I think this is the first motion, and I wanted to make sure that we shape the motion appropriately and recall that we are making recommendations from the bylaws to the governor. And so the motion was to reject the proposal, but I'm wondering if there isn't a clear process that we need to spell out in the motion, because I'm not sure the board actually has the authority to reject the proposal. I think the board has the authority to not recommend the name change to move to the governor's office. I'm not sure I'm saying this very elegantly, but you get my point, yes?
I get your point. Representative Benavides.
I would amend my motion to say that I move that we forward this proposal to the governor with our recommendation that it be rejected.
Okay, and Representative Will, does your second still hold?
It does, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? It was a good point, A.G. Beatty. Thank you very much. Seeing none, this is another process question. Do we just want to do votes by acclamation, or do we want to take a roll call? I'm willing just to take a vote by acclamation if we're comfortable with that. And if we get in a situation, we can call the roll. Is that okay? Okay.
Okay by me.
All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Now on to our next agenda item, USBGN case 5055 for final consideration. And this is to change the current name Viral Reservoir to Wapiti Reservoir. Again, the reason provided by the proponent is to change the name to reflect current land use. Again, this is for another reservoir located on private property in San Miguel County. Let me start by seeing if there's any public comment on USBGN case 5055. Go ahead and raise your hand on the Zoom function.
I see no hands raised, Tim.
Okay, seeing none, we will close public comment. And now on to discussion by the board. Representative Benavides.
I would reiterate the comments I made on the previous proposal that I don't see a compelling reason for adopting this, as there were no, other than the initial proponent, there was not a lot of people coming forward, and there didn't seem to be a real need to do this.
Okay, any further discussion?
I agree, Tim, and it's also complicates water right issues and stuff. So I'm in agreement. See no need to change it.
Very good. Any further discussion? I think this is headed in a similar direction, so we will go ahead and close discussion. Is there a motion? Representative Benavides moving us along. All right.
This sounds like a repeat on a record. But anyway, I move that we forward a recommendation to the governor that we recommend he rejects proposal USBGN case number 5455.
5055. Okay, do I have a second?
50? Oh, yeah,
Second.
5055, sorry.
Perfect. We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed, same sign. And again, motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. We will compile, so the motion carries. We have decided to reject or recommend rejection of the two proposals, 5054, 5055. We will prepare the comments regarding this discussion and put that into a packet that we will send to the governor's office. We will share that with all of you. And that will test out our next phase of the process. Okay, with that, we are going to review now next agenda item 9 on your, if you're following along on the agenda here in the packets, review guidance document. So we had left our process document, our guidance document, as a draft form as we ran the couple of proposals here. And now is an appropriate time to come back and revisit that. You do have that guidance document in your packets. I am also happy to share my screen if it would be helpful as we kind of work through this. Just tell me if there's a preference on how to move forward. Should we just try and have discussion until we need to share the screen, see how far we get? Okay, perfect. All right, if I could characterize, I think some of the comments from our last meeting, it was a desire perhaps to expedite this process a little bit here. We've got essentially 3 phases regarding proposals. Proposal introduction phase, where we review the document or the proposal, seek what additional information we would like, identify committee members or staff that might be able to help us acquire the additional information. And then we've moved that on to a first consideration and then on to a final consideration. I think that it sounded like, if I could characterize it, we might have been, there might have been an opportunity to have taken a vote on this at last meeting. And I wonder if there's any comment about that, if we ought to somehow maybe combine the first consideration and the second consideration essentially in this document. And so just looking for that. I think there's also some discussion on the other end, given what we are doing, renaming these, considering them over the course of 3 meetings or so, is something that allows us to give ample thought and consideration. I'm wondering though, if, we could always table an item, an agenda item to the next meeting or carry it forward if we need to have additional input, information or public outreach. So that might be just a way that we just, handle that issue. What are the thoughts here? Or we love the document and we can just keep it as it is.
I'm sorry, I didn't speak up when you asked to share it. I've been trying to find it. Could you share the document? I want to make sure I know what we're talking about.
Yes, you bet.
Representative
Online.
Benavides, it starts on page 17 of the packet, if that helps at all.
That will help. I'll find
Okay.
it.
So we are on page, thank you, Ms. Abad. We are on page 17 in your
I
package
found
there.
it.
Okay, perfect. Ms. Abad, do I have sharing? It looks like I've got screen sharing abilities. Let me, or you could actually.
You don't have to share for me if nobody else wanted it, because I thought it was at the end of that document. I forgot it was in the middle.
And we can start over if you'd like. I kind of started towards the end or the middle of the process there. If we want to just walk through this, what's the pleasure of the board?
It would help me to start over.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. So in our guidance document here, and AG Beatty, if you see anything or want to interject, please flag us down here. But basically, we go through how you submit a proposal, and we've decided that for consistency, and especially right now, since we've got a backlog, that our preference is that proposals go through the USBGN process first. They do some outreach as they mature the proposals themselves. And we've listed those, and that process is also on our website that provides the links to go through the USBGN. And so that is essentially section 1. And then section 2 is pretty standard review of the USBGN process and some of the information that they will begin providing. And then once the USBGN section 3 transmits the name of the proposal to the board administrator, the board process, this board will commence. And we identify that the name change proposal will undergo 3 phases of consideration. The first one then is under section 3A, the process prior to proposal introduction. And that is after receiving a name proposal from the USBGN, we will place the proposal on the agenda for the next board meeting. The board administrator will also prepare and send a brief informational summary to the board members. And the informational summary will include, but is not limited to, any submitted materials, written, verbal, public comments, preliminary outreach, and preliminary research. It will also occur, the following will also occur: all relevant information we posted to the board website, and then outreach to the proponent of the name change proposal and the applicants will occur to alert them that the process for consideration of the name change proposal they have submitted has begun. I think that, and this is my opinion, I think that proposal, that part of the process worked pretty well with the proposal, where we got a chance to review, got a chance to see what information the USBGN was able to obtain in terms of public comment from federal partners such as the U.S. Forest Service, some tribal outreach, as well as outreach to county commissioners. Now, not all of that necessarily comes in, and that's then those type of informational items that we identified, as well as some additional research. If you remember, we had committee members look into or consult with the brand commissioner and the local historic district regarding any comments or information. Any comments about the process up until then? And then the next, I'm sorry, Representative Will, was that signed?
Oh, no, nope, sorry.
And then basically what we did through that introductory phase was the board identified whether we nominate board members as the steward of the name change proposal to assist moving the proposal through the board process, or consider whether a committee/task force should be created, which we otherwise did identify members of the board that could do some additional outreach. And then also we will consider whether substantial interest exists from tribal governments and other tribal communities to create a proposal community to perform additional outreach to tribes. So that is the summary of the introduction phase of our process. Any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none.
I think that works well, Tim.
Okay, Representative Benavides.
You know, your earlier comments about maybe collapsing these was intriguing, because when I read this over, I knew how we did it the first time and over 3 months, but I think you're right. If we just did two, a first consideration and then a final consideration, we could always carry it over to the next meeting, like the first consideration. If it's something that's pretty straightforward and we can get more information and then do final, I don't know. It just seems like, well, this always mandates 3 months effectively.
Yes, I think that's a good point, is that this does mandate 3 months. I also though wonder, there's nothing that prohibits us from extending it for 3 months or beyond that necessarily, if we are to kind of collapse it and allow for that in this process. The other issue, I think, is that as this board develops some history and some consistency, I think we're going to see some trends perhaps emerge in terms of types of naming proposals that might carry over and might provide guidance in terms of how we are positioned to consider certain types of votes. I think the discussion was really important this morning about, you know, we don't want to take these, we do need to take these, these proposals. We don't want to take these proposals lightly, because it does include a significant amount of time, cost, changing maps, perhaps some level of confusion. And so just to change for the sake of changing is not necessarily advisable. And we might identify some of those relatively early on, especially when they don't hit some of our other criteria within Appendix B, such as offensive or derogatory type of names that certainly warrant further consideration and a different level of consideration. So that is then, you know, what we do after we compile that information is we then have the first consideration where the board completes the proposal introduction phase, and we consider the criteria outlined in Appendix B and discuss the proposal. We also entertain public guidance, or public comment, and then that then moves us to final consideration essentially. So we could, at that consideration phase, and I think I would just, if we're inclined to do that, collapse those two, just call it the consideration phase as opposed to the introduction phase, and rework the guidelines here that would allow us to evaluate those, to continue the hearing to a later date for further information, rather than having set in stone 3 set meetings for consideration of these. Any comments on that? Representative Exum.
I like that proposal, because I agree with Representative Benavides. We don't want to get into we could get into a cycle where we don't get beyond that first consideration, is what my concern would be. So I like collapsing that so we can move forward.
AG Beatty, before I get too far ahead of myself, do you have any comment on where we might be headed here? Does that sound, or do you want to refresh us on any conversations we had on the past in terms of this? I'm not, AG Beatty, if you're speaking, you're still on mute. She might have another, oh, there you are.
Sorry about that. I think it's really up to the board and what the board wants. There aren't really legal drivers here. It is really a sort of a policy decision of the board. Lindsay and I did spend some time trying to figure out if 2 meetings made more sense, if the initial meeting and the initial work could be collapsed into the first consideration. There are so many ways that you could really do this. And maybe if there is a way to build in a lot of flexibility so that you could either condense or expand, then that might be of benefit. If the board doesn't feel like there is a high need for outreach, maybe you could decide to skip the outreach and move in a board meeting from the initial consideration directly into the first consideration. There's just so many ways that you could do it. It was really designed to be a straw man.
Great, thank you. Board members, any further comments or discussion on this part of the process? Do we like attempting to consolidate the first and final consideration into just a consideration phase and detail avenues for continuing cases until pending further information or discussion, if necessary? I'm seeing some light head nods. So why don't we can go ahead and take a cut if you don't mind, and then bring this back to the board with a revised process there that collapses those into one. Is everybody comfortable with that on the process phase? All right, I'm seeing thumbs up. Any thumbs down, please speak up or give me a sign. Okay, and then section 4 again provides for
go to section 4. There was one thing on the final consideration. We just it's right above section 4, Roman numeral 4, where we vote to approve or deny a proposal. Since we just did that, we probably need to change that language. We vote to recommend a denial or approval of a proposal, something like that.
So noted. And I agree with you. I think that's pretty straightforward. So we will adopt that into the process document. Not seeing any further comment. On to section 4 was the public comment. We accept public comment written throughout, as well as public comment during the consideration of each case individually. And then we allow for a larger, more general public comment at each of our meetings where we have had members of the public consistently voice their opinions about but even potential cases that might come before us into the future. So I think that's pretty straightforward. We also have a public comment section on our website now. And we've also added an opportunity for members of the public to add their names to a list that receives our meeting notifications and packet information. Any comments about the public comment phase? Seeing none, section 5 then is the reconsideration of proposals. The board will not reconsider a proposal that the board had previously acted upon unless one of the following applies. No real way to necessarily test this out at this stage. The board becomes aware of significant new information The governor requests the board reconsider, or the USBGN requests the board to revisit its decision. I think that's relatively straightforward. I can't think of any other scenarios that might pop up, but we could always adjust accordingly if that were to arise. And I'm certain that would constitute a robust board discussion. Are we okay with section 5 and reconsideration of proposals? Okay. Section 6, we did have a discussion with the governor's office on this. I think this is something that we're going to run through this process with these next two cases, or these two cases that we just approved, to see if this works for the governor's, for the governor, I should say. And so we will test this out and get back with any suggested amendments to this, unless anybody has anything further to recommend in this section. Representative Benavides, so you came off mute.
Yeah, it was the same in A, that the board's vote to approve or deny, that it's our vote to recommend approval or denial.
Got it. Thank you. Any further comment? So we will come back then. We will get to test that section of the process out, and we'll come back next month with the edited version, if there are any, to section 6. And then section 7, forwarding approved names to the USBGN. And I actually think that we probably ought to retitle this forwarding recommendations to the USBGN. It talks about how we will do that. Sending an email to that email address. After all interested parties, including the board, have provided recommendations to USBGN. The USBGN's research is complete. This kind of turns it back over to the USBGN, and they will take the matter up for their final consideration. Representative Benavides.
I have no problem with what you suggested, but on B, it's all parties will be notified of the outcome. We never defined all parties. Is it just the applicant, or is it everybody that commented, or what does that mean?
That's interesting. I think that here's how we're thinking about this also. And I think this is part of the governor's, the question of the governor and his office is, how do we actually publicly express these recommendations? And I think that's going to take some coordination with the governor. We could always put out a press release via DNR on behalf of the Naming Advisory Board announcing our recommendations. I wonder, though, that we ought to coordinate with the governor if he accepts it. I think that is sort of the actual kind of keystone moment there. And when we forward it on back to the USBGN, I think that is then actually the final type of step. So there will be that type of notification, and that's part of this conversation back with that process regarding the governor. But I think, to your point, maybe we ought to just clarify that the proposers and the board, well, let's see here. After all interested parties, including the board, have provided recommendations, USBGN, okay, this talks about the USBGN just generally, and everybody that's providing information. All parties will be notified of the outcomes of the USBGN's decision. Actually, let me call on Ms. Runyon. How do you notify parties about decisions? How would you notify us whether you accepted or rejected our recommendations? And do you let the proponents of the proposals know about that, your decision? Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me again to participate in the meeting. Thank you. The process is, yes, we notify the proponent after the BGN's decision. We typically mail them a letter on letterhead. We feel it's a little bit more personal to get a letter rather than just an email. A lot depends on, of course, how they contacted us to begin with. Sometimes they don't include a mailing address, in which case, yes, they would get an email from us essentially saying either we are pleased to inform you that the USBGN on so-and-so date approved your proposal, or we regret to inform you that on so-and-so date, the name was not approved. And then we go on in the latter case to cite the reasoning for the rejection. We then also notify by email essentially anyone who contacted us directly. So the county government, if they sent an opinion, we let them know the outcome, again, by email. If we heard from, say, a historical society or neighbors, if there was email comments submitted by neighbors, property owners, others in the area, they would get an email from us too. And that all happens within about a week or so of the decision. As far as notifying you, we send out typically about 2 or 3 days after our meeting, a email announcement with an attached extract from the GNIS database saying, here are the decisions rendered by the BGN at the recent meeting. And that would go to the Colorado, the advisory board's email address that we have on file now. We would also CC Johnny for the record. You do not get a formal letter from us unless you feel you really would rather. It's easier, email's easier these days. So it's a very sort of low key sort of notification process. And in the approval letter, it would say, you know, the name has been added, if it's a new name or a name change, the name has been added to the GNIS database. Here is a link to view the new record. So that all happens, again, within about a week or so of our meeting, hopefully less. The names are put into the database almost immediately after that evening or the next morning. So it all happens fairly quickly.
So this then is essentially characterizing your process. So after all that are interested in providing feedback or comments to the USBGN, your research is complete. You then add the proposal to the docket for your next meeting, and then you will notify all parties that provided input of the outcome of your decision.
Correct.
Okay. So we can clarify that you do notify, that the USBGN notifies those that had taken the moment to contact, to the extent that you have an email or a physical address to provide that update.
Yeah. And I will add that there are some state names boards that like to inform the proponent of your recommendation and letting them know that you have rendered a decision, or in your case, the governor has rendered a decision, and it will be forwarded to the BGN. That in theory would give the proponent a short window to maybe rebut your recommendation or add further comment, or to potentially forward additional comments to the BGN for the final vote. Others prefer not to, and so the proponent never knows the outcome of the state deliberations. It's simply forwarded to us in your minutes, or again, in this case, the governor's recommendation, I guess, will come to us. They don't know it's going to be on our docket until they get the letter from us. The decision was already made. So it's up to you whether you feel it's appropriate to inform the proponent, or you just simply put it on your website somewhere and advise them to check back there periodically for the status. It's really up to you all how you want to handle that.
It's a good point. Let me take A.G. Beatty has her hand up. Good morning again.
Good morning. I ended up realizing in section 6, the forwarding of approved names to the governor, that B is a little bit light on process. with C is really good. It says if the governor doesn't act or doesn't say anything, then the following things happen. But if he comments or decides to do something different, it's light on process. So I just wanted to raise that in front of the board, and maybe the team can circle up and add process that the board can consider when they consider the rest of the changes.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. And that's kind of the section I had also identified in terms of with the governor's office, that how that kind of fundamentally works. I do think, though, at that point, we ought to, I think out of a matter of courtesy, and I'm interested in other thoughts here, when we forward our recommendation to the governor, we should probably forward that recommendation as a matter of courtesy to the proponent of the proposal. That then gives them perhaps time to engage, and then also engage with the USBGN. What do we think about that? Representative Chimino?
My apologies, just providing a thumbs up to your suggestion.
Okay, sorry, I just kind of saw movement out of the corner of my eye there. Thoughts about that? We got a Ms. Joseph, thumbs up. Thumbs up. Okay, we'll provide that. Okay, so then back to section 7B, I think we're going to clarify that the USBGN will notify all parties that provided input on the outcome. Any comments about that last section there? Okay. And then just to kind of round it up, we've got subsections C and D on the page 6. If approved, the new name or name change will be recorded in the USBGN's GNIS system. So that is, again, reiterating their process. Okay, and then on to Appendix A. This is where we discuss community outreach is essential to conducting a successful process, and the board should consider, and this is not limited to, but we should consider outreach to and by, and we list those, includes tribal governments, local entities with historical focus, counties, appropriate state agencies, appropriate, federal agencies, property owners with an interest in the geographic feature as identified by the board, and individual experts in the field as identified by the board. Any desire to amend that any further? Okay, seeing none. Appendix B then, again, is this is where the board will consider the following for each proposal, and we list out indigenous names. Proponents should provide appropriate evidence of the historical and or current significance of the proposed name, as well as its relationship to the geographic feature. We will only review a name change proposal containing an indigenous name if the proposal was submitted in consultation with the tribe whose name is the subject of the proposal. And then identifies present day local usage, names that are present or that are in present local usage are strongly are strongly supported by local residents will be noted. Historical significance, we like historical significance. Family kinship, names that are significant due to family kinship predominant in the area associated with the geographic. Proponents should provide appropriate evidence of the historical significance. Trust lands, names common to trust lands near geographic feature. Edit there. Proponents should provide appropriate evidence again, and then proposals made to eliminate existing name problems. Commemorative names, and we outline some specifics requirements regarding the commemorative names. A lot of this, I believe, tracks the USBGN, such as the individual must be deceased for at least 5 years before proposal will be considered. And then on to, we identify some other considerations, the board's discretion. We've got a discretion to make decisions to change a name or adopt any specific name. And we'll consider all relevant factors regarding name proposals. Names located on tribal trust lands. The board will not be asked by the USBGN to review name proposals where geographic feature is located entirely on tribal trust lands, and instead deferring to the tribal government. Generic terms when proposed. Geographic names include both a specific and generic element. A generic term, creek, ridge, lake, should be appropriate to the feature and should normally be consistent with generic terms already used. And then revisiting previous decisions, proposals to change names that have recently, less than 5 years, been approved by the USBGN will be very rarely considered, reconsidered again. And then multiple proposals for the same geographic feature on the last page, item 11, or page 11. When the board has received multiple proposals relating to the same geographic feature, the board may, in its discretion, delay deliberation on a proposal so as to make simultaneous deliberations on one recommendation. We will have coming down the pipeline, and actually I think the next couple of cases that we're going to take up here had multiple proposals submit, and I think we'll see where that all essentially converges. So with that, comments, thoughts regarding any of the document, Representative Benavides?
Thank you. I guess the when I look at how we put the titles of these sections, that we'll consider the following factors and will discourage or deny with the other factors, that maybe where somewhere in here we put a catch-all, that maybe that catch-all should be at the beginning of that, because when we consider the following factors for each proposal, we're not limited to those. I don't think that's our intent, that we only consider those things. If something we're not thinking of now comes up, that we may need to look at it, I would think.
Okay.
So I'm just suggesting sort of a catch-all in that somehow, or maybe in the prefatory part. And then on the one, the first bullet point on indigenous names under factors, we say, is it that one that it's if the board will only review if the proposal was submitted in consultation with the tribe. Maybe we should say after consultation, because in consultation almost refers to a joint application. And so, and then I had one last thing, and that was at the very end, the last bullet point we did have this discussion last time on multiple proposals, that really is a process thing, not an appendix thing. That section I think should be somewhere in our process when we have multiple proposals and what happens, because I know our last meeting, Ms. Runyon had indicated there's sort of, you have to vote on each one. And this talks about making one recommendation unless they withdraw, the proponents withdraw the recommendation, that we'd still have to vote on each one. At least that's as I recall our conversation from last meeting. So I think we need to work that out a little more and put it in process instead of in this appendix.
And we're happy to take a stab at that. That strikes me as making sense. Real quick, Commissioner Tomino, I did see your hand up, but give me a second here. Representative Benavides, just top of Appendix B for the catch-all, did you need a little bit more in there than the language that's at the top there, that there's no set formula to determine whether a specific proposal should be approved or denied, and each is considered on a case-by-case and evaluated on its own merits. However, there are certain factors that the board may wish to consider, and that this section describes those factors as well as how these factors influence the naming decision.
Yeah, I don't think that covers it fully because it says this is a list of the factors and how we'll consider those factors. But what if it's a factor we're not thinking of? I don't want us to be limited by those factors if another one comes up somehow. And it could just be massaging the prefatory language.
Okay. Commissioner Chimino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was just going to point out to Representative Benavides, I agree with her desire for a catch-all. I think the language in the first paragraph of Appendix B is sufficient. However, it's fine to make it more robust. And so perhaps we could get words that make it more clear that we are not limited by this criteria. So you already covered it.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on this? All right, welcome back. Dr. Way, I'm not certain, I'm sorry, when you joined us, welcome. Just want to make sure that we recorded your attendance for the record. Just as an update, we are working on the process document. We just kind of wrapped up here. Prior to that, the board did, I'm not sure again when you joined us, but the board did vote to recommend the rejection of case numbers 5054 and 5055.
Yes, thank you for the update on what's been happening. I apologize for arriving late. I confused my commission meeting times, and I thought this began at 9, so I'm sorry. This will not happen again.
Nope, that's perfect. We appreciate you taking the time and being here. Thank you. All right, any further discussion on the process document? If not, what we can do is we'll go ahead and take a cut at some edits and provide that feedback, and we can have a further discussion at that time on those edits on the document, and then continue to work on the cases at hand. All good? Thumbs up. Any final comments? Going once, twice, 3 times. All right, we will do that. Thank you very much. Okay, next we had a break, but that wasn't until 9:45. We're an hour and 15. I know we've got a lot of busy individuals though on the board. Do we need to take 5 minutes here real quick? Thumbs up, or do we want to wait and push on through?
I'm okay to wait.
Okay. Unless anybody says they need a break, then we'll go ahead and continue on through here.
Going.
Okay, perfect. All right, so moving on with agenda item 10 here, USBGN case 5455 introduction. And this is a proposal. The receipt date by the USBGN was October 20th, 2020. And this is to rename Squaw Mountain in Clear Creek County to Mount Mestahay Mountain. And real quick, am I pronouncing that right? Commissioner Wheelock, I know that I see you here, and I know you've got some experience here. Unless, do we have Kiana Limpy available, who I believe is the proponent here on record?
I received a text a little bit ago that she was, there's some confusion, and she was unaware that the meeting was happening this morning for some reason and didn't make it so far, unless she's shown up on screen and come in. There are some other folks here, I believe, who can also make public comment to it.
Okay, I want to make sure that I do these justice and pronounce them correctly. So would somebody mind helping me out, making sure that I am pronouncing that Mount Mestahay correctly.
Again, I hesitate. I don't think I'm the right person to do that, which you can see, but it's more abbreviated on the end, and it's Mestahay. Almost as
Mestahay?
though it ended in a silent T. Mestahay.
Mestahay.
Has been described to us by the Northern Cheyenne who made the proposal.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I don't
Yes.
know how to pronounce it, but when you say the Northern Cheyenne made the proposal, I'm looking at it, and you mention another woman, and this says the proponent is Sarah Campbell.
Yes.
Is there a different proponent that we're talking about? I'm just a little lost.
We had, I think this is one of those, and Ms. Abad can correct me if I'm wrong, or Ms. Runyon, where we had multiple proposals and we had a convergence and a final agreement on it. And so, Ms. Abad, do I have that understanding correct?
Yes, that is correct. The original proposal to change Squaw Mountain was made by Sarah Campbell to Mount Mastanta. And then there was another proposal from Tiana to change it to Mastahey Mountain. The two were processed until Sarah Campbell withdrew her Mount Mastanta proposal.
Ms. Runyon, did you have anything further to add?
No, Johnny's absolutely right. That was the process in the course of reaching out for tribal comment on Mount Mastanta. The Northern Cheyenne, Miss Limpy, came back with a counter proposal for the name in the Cheyenne language. They both refer to the same individual, the same Northern Cheyenne woman, but this was a more authentic indigenous spelling of her name. And so yes, Miss Campbell did then follow up to withdraw her proposal, and she now fully supports Mount Mesta'ahe, or however you pronounce it.
Okay, Representative Benavides.
Okay, thank you for that bit of clarification, but I'm still confused on the numbers, because if Miss Campbell submitted 5455 and that was withdrawn and somebody submitted one, or was it converted? Because we're voting on the proposal as numbered. I'm still confused of which one we're talking about, and there's nothing on that, just starting at the beginning of it that really speaks to, I know I read through the whole thing and I get where different names came forward and people agreed, but I'm just wondering, because this is tracking proposals by number, how does that work for us?
Ms. Runyon, any help there?
So the USBGN case number 5455 is the current case number assigned to Miss Limpy's proposal.
That is correct. Yes, the fact that the original proposal for Mount Mastanta was withdrawn later, that would not even be on your docket for consideration. So Johnny is correct. That number refers to the new proposal, essentially the counter proposal, and the review list on which that one appears. There's no reference in your docket to the older proposal number. So I hope that clarifies.
It clarifies, but if I wasn't listening to this conversation, it wouldn't, because the document I'm looking at still has Miss Campbell's name, so that perhaps something that expresses that, because later as we send these out, that it's not at all clear from the documents what you're describing.
We can work to see if we might be able to kind of clarify that into the future. So I think that's a good point. Thank you. Okay, so we've got I'm sorry, so we've got the case here identified 5455. I understand that Ms. Limpy will be joining us. Johnny, would you mind letting us know when she is able to call in?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
we will take a pause right there. Just for the public's understanding now, this is the introductory phase. This is where we simply introduce this. The board will review the application materials that were provided in any research or information provided to date by the USBGN and identify any additional information that we may want. We are, I want to clarify also, we are early in establishing some consistency here. This is the third proposal we are now considering. And so we are still refining the process a little bit. I know that I believe Ms. Abad was able to send out an email to Ms. Limpy. We can try and we will get better at this as we move forward. We will also look forward and provide time at our next meeting as well. So with that, board, do we want to take public comment first, or would you like to review the application? Representative?
Me?
Yes, I'm sorry, Benavides, yes.
I saw Mr. Commissioner Semino raise his hand before me, though.
Okay, Commissioner Semino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since we're ahead of the agenda, I guess I suggest we review it as a board, and then we might give more time for any of those who we're going to hop on to make public comments at the appropriate time.
Okay. All right, board. So we've got
I did have a question before you got to public comment.
Oh, yeah, you bet.
Because in it, it does mention 3 other entities with the name that there's 2 other summits named Squaw Mountain, and there's a Squaw Pass as well. I'm reading from page 31 of the document that Johnny sent out at the bottom of that.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, process-wise, because we talked about if we have proposals on those other 3 features, or are we going to get them? That's what I was wondering about.
So in the case of the Squaw Pass, I think I can speak, and Commissioner Wheelock would probably understand this. This is either a county or a road operated. In this case, actually, it's both by CDOT and the county. And so I think there's another process. We don't rename the roads. Now, I don't know that Squaw Pass is a geographic feature. I guess we could look into that as part of the information outside of the road. But that is more of I think whether it's a CDOT process, we could check into that. And then Commissioner Wheelock, you've got some ideas here. Would you please?
Yes, I think I would just state that we've already been talking about, for example, we have 2 or 3 other roads within the county, but they fall under county jurisdiction, the naming of them. And so we were really waiting for this. This is the one S-word mountain that exists within Clear Creek County, and it's its own proposal. And so we're waiting for the outcome of this process in order to help inform our citizens and ourselves with the renaming of some of these other features like roads and so forth. Our intent right now, I believe, is to rename all of those, but we felt that this was the lead moment and the lead issue that was being represented by the indigenous proposers of this particular item. So we're waiting for this, and then afterwards we'll follow through with our own processes on those other points to which some of those other points to which you refer.
If I may, that was my follow-up question. Those other 2 mountains, says they're 70 miles to the southeast and 130 miles to the northwest. I apologize, I don't know how big Clear Creek County is. If those other mountains are also in Clear Creek?
No.
Not that big. And the USBGN just received a proposal to rename, I believe, one of the Squaw Mountains in another county. That was just on the update, I believe, that we provided here. So that will be coming before us but the USBGN had just recently received that.
Then could I ask, as part of the outreach that we do when we contact particularly the tribes in the counties, that we ask them about those other two mountains and the pass, so they could weigh in and give input if they haven't already to those counties?
I don't see why that couldn't be included in our outreach. So I think that was probably fine unless there's any other comments or concerns with that. It seems as a matter of probably being expeditious here to provide those opportunities. Real quick, let me turn to Ms. Runyon, has a hand up, and see if she's got further clarification. Ms. Runyon.
Thank you again. Yes, the BGN can only consider proposals that have been formally submitted to us. And right now, regarding the features in Clear Creek County, we only have this particular Squaw Mountain. And of course, we have the famous, Mount Evans, but we have not received any proposal to rename Squaw Pass. There are two other Squaw Mountains in the state. Neither are in Clear Creek County. And yes, we have received a proposal to change the one in Teller County. As far as reaching out somewhat proactively, by all means, if you feel that there is a compelling reason to point out to any interested party, and of course the tribes would be the focus there, but any interested party could initiate a new proposal. So I would say yes, maybe in the course of reaching out, there's no harm in saying, oh, by the way, we're well aware there are other features in our state that may be of concern to you. We're happy to work with you on the process, or you're welcome to submit a proposal directly to the BGN. Here is the link. But again, we're reactive. We don't go looking for names to change. So if you feel you want to be a little bit more proactive and, as you say, more efficient maybe in saying, while we're considering this one, do you have any thoughts? But they must submit a proposal with a replacement name. Simply saying we support a name change for that other feature isn't going to be sufficient. They've got to come up with a proposal with a replacement name, and that starts the whole process from the beginning. So by all means, yeah. You want to encourage this, but obviously, and then, to answer your question, Tim, yes, Squaw Pass in Clay Creek County is an official geographic named feature, a natural feature. As Commissioner Wheelock said, the naming of roads and associated features, I believe there's also a lodge and a ski pass, those would not be at all within our jurisdiction. But yes, the name of the pass would certainly be under BGN purview, again, as would all the other natural features in the state.
Okay, thank you. And so that's important to note on some of this, certainly in the case that if we were to support this name change and then a similar proposal for the pass were to come, we could perhaps even expedite that as a matter of consistency. That's an interesting point about reaching out about some of the other features that are similarly named, that it doesn't necessarily address a proposed name, and that our proposals are to change or to name or rename features, and that's important to have that name included and have the comments and responses to those names come forward also and be able to speak out about those.
I guess if I could jump in again and sorry to interrupt, it just occurred to me that the Colorado Names Board, you all can be proponents too. You're welcome to be that proactive to the point of saying we as a collective group propose a name change. Don't feel it has to come from a third party. You all can be proponents. Now, whether you want to do that, and secondly, the name of the pass, the replacement name, wouldn't necessarily have to be the same as the mountain. It could be. You could have, Mesta
Right.
Pass or
Right.
something else entirely. So there's no requirement that the names, just because they're the same now, doesn't mean they have to be the same in the future. So another name might be much more appropriate than was proposed. So there's lots of options here. So I would say first thing is, get the word out that you're open to additional proposals and just send them on to us, and that'll get the process going.
Okay, Commissioner Chimino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh my goodness. Listening to Ms. Runyon point that out to us, and maybe it's already there. If I missed it, I apologize. Do you want to add that in our process document, that that is an action we can take?
We could, we have not addressed that one way or the other. I think that if I remember some of the earlier conversations is for us to get good at responding to the proposals before we start making proposals themselves, but that's not saying that we might actually hit a point in consideration that another name might come out through the discussion and you need somebody to do that. The process for us to submit the proposal, I think that's from Mayor Pro Tem Joseph, would be essentially similar to the process that we've identified now, is that we would fill out the application through the USBGN. We would identify an individual as a proponent, probably somebody from the board, and it would then be processed that way. I do believe that perhaps Ms. Runyon, maybe you can clarify this. If it is our board doing some of this, I'm assuming that there's probably that process might be a tad expedited.
Well, we would still have the need to prepare a case brief. It would still go on that quarterly review list. We would still, as we would for any proposal, reach out to the county government, send our notice to the tribes, reach out to the Federal Land Management Agency if that's appropriate. Part of me is tempted to say it would be nice if this board already had that in hand before you initiate a proposal to the BGN. Then again, that would sort of put more of a burden on you all to do that additional outreach. And I don't know if you're ready for that just yet, but I would say yes. If for example, Clear Creek County is a good example of a very responsive and engaged county board, and certainly Commissioner Wheelock understands the process. So certainly yes, in discussing a Squaw Mountain name change, if in conversation Squaw Pass comes up and Commissioner Wheelock says absolutely our board would be very supportive of a name change, here's an idea we have. That way, if it comes to us through you on our proposal form with support already from the county, then yes, by default, it would expedite the process somewhat. We're still going to have the 60-day requirement to reach out to tribes, all federally recognized tribes, give them 60 days to comment. We can't get around that. That cannot be bypassed as executive order. And then federal agencies, we would still want Forest Service input. So that's going to take the necessary time. So yes, it might shave a month or two off the total process, but it's not going to happen overnight either.
Okay, and so to Mayor Pro Tem's question there, and she raised a couple more follow-ups in terms of special treatment. I think that you've characterized what that special treatment is, that perhaps there are some efficiencies, an expedited process to be gained essentially, and that's what would be any advantage that might exist.
Absolutely, I would say, yeah, anything that comes from a state naming authority, it's certainly going to carry a lot, I would say more weight, but certainly gives it much more credibility in the BGN's eyes. So if you've done the initial vetting and you feel strongly this is an appropriate replacement, I would think that our BGN would look very favorably on that, and it certainly would carry just additional weight, I would say. Not to minimize proposals from individuals or obviously not tribal members, but certainly, yes, you are the state names authority. You're supposed to have thought through some of these process questions before you submit a proposal. So yes, I'd like to think that the BGN members would certainly, in fact, we appreciate states taking the initiative to change these names where you feel it's appropriate. So yes, yeah, at some point down the road, you may start wanting to do an inventory of all the names in your state that you feel ought to be changed. But yeah, talk about a lot of effort, but yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wheelock, I know you had your hand up. I do see Miss Limpy is on now. Do you mind if I
would defer to her immediately, yes.
Okay. Miss Limpy, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and apologize for any miscommunication. We are learning here as we go. This is early in our process. but do really appreciate you joining us. This is the introductory phase, just to give you a little bit of background for this proposal, which is been identified as USBGN case 5455. And I understand that you are now the proponent on record. What we do during this introductory phase is typically look at the material that's been provided to us by the USBGN and identify any additional information outreach that we may need in the course of our consideration. We will have follow up with a formal consideration then at our next meeting and subsequent meetings if necessary. So we look forward to working with you. But with that, I just want to take a moment here and see if you had anything that you wanted to say or introduce regarding this proposal. And also, particularly, we're very interested in making sure that we pronounce the proposed rename correctly. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Limpy, if you are available.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tiana Limpy. I'm the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Northern Cheyenne Tribe, and I wanted to take a few minutes to show my support for Mistahet Mountain. I know this has been an ongoing collaboration between various groups for some time now. And basically, I just wanted to get on this conference call or this Zoom call to show support for Mistahet Mountain. I know, like you said, this is the introductory part, and I know there's a long process to go with this, but I don't really have any objections or anything that I'm concerned about at this time, but I just wanted to make sure that I was able to get on this call and show support for the name change.
Great, thank you. And am I pronouncing that right when I say Mistahet?
Mistahet, yeah.
Mistahet, okay. Thank you. Board members, any questions for Ms. Limpy? Representative Benavides.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Limpy, for joining us. In your letter to, I guess it was Susan Johnson to the federal USBGN, you indicated that there was there should be a dot over the second E, I think. And I just want to make sure, since whatever's finally adopted is going to be put on a map, were we to adopt that, not only that we have the right spelling, but the right, I don't know what you call those, periods and dots. But could you clarify that, what you said in your message?
Oh, that was the spelling that we got from our linguistics people up here. It's actually correct. The E is actually silent in our language alphabet.
But you indicate in your letter that there should be a dot over the E, and there's
those are characteristics for the E in our language. So it is correct, Mistahet.
So there should be a dot over each of the three.
Oh no, just one.
Which one?
The second one.
After the first H.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure of that.
Okay.
And you also mentioned in there and that White Thunder and the family were the previous keeper of the sacred arrows. I think that's extremely important. I don't think everyone understands the importance of that, and that maybe you could explain it to this board.
She was one of the three daughters of the Sacred Arrow Keeper, which is one of our covenants of the Cheyenne people. She was instrumental in many of the conversations or the dealings with the Bent family, whom she was married into. I believe that her father had really, I guess, high regard for Bent's Fort there. And I guess she was part of the movement, the trade movement in that particular area. And she had a lot of contributions to the success of that fort. And the fact that she was an arrow keeper's daughter also created a standard for her too. And so the people really respected who she was as a person, and I guess the capability she had in assisting her families with the trade networks and honoring her family.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Board members, any other questions for Ms. Limpy? Dr. Gonzalez, and then we'll follow up with Dr. Limerick. Dr. Gonzalez.
I just had a question for clarification. So is the little dot over the E over the second E in the whole name? So which would be the first E in that second part of the name? So Representative Benavides, I think you understood it to be actually the third E in the name, but so I'm wondering if which E, just wanted clarification which E it was.
And Commissioner Wheelock had actually sent along the spelling there. If that is correct, Commissioner, I think that's what we're looking at. It'd be in the chat section, it's the second E, and it's similar to what is in our packet here.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Limerick.
Hi, Ms. Lippy, a pleasure to have you with us virtually and to get your guidance. I had a question. Oh, and I also want to say, if I understand this right, you have some fires in your area, and I hope everything is going okay with containing those fires. And I wanted to ask about non-Indian people and their struggles with respectful pronunciation, which clearly our group here has manifested a few indications that we are not adept at this. And I'm wondering if there is, and of course with the project with Rocky Mountain National Park, this has come up as well, but is there, are there better ways to introduce a name that is not going to be in the cognitive framework of non-Indian folks that speeds their learning process or makes it possible for them not to be, well, to be minimally clumsy as they adapt? And I speak as someone who has a terrible record in trying to figure out what's happening in another language and how to pronounce it. So I'm just wondering if there are thoughts about how we can be as effective as possible in signage or in the announcements or something that says, here's what works for becoming familiar with a form of conveying a sound that we don't that we're not familiar with. I wanted to ask about that. And then I also wondered about the thinking ahead on plaques and information on site. Is there a thought, and again, others would know more than I know about this, but is that the custom that with a name change like that part of the planning for the change is the placement of several, maybe one, but several prominent plaques that tell us the information that you just helped us with by getting to know who this historic figure was. So those are my two questions about better ways of conveying, well, getting non-Indian people to be less clumsy. Is not that you have been the least bit clumsy, Tim. I'm not saying that. You've been very forthright to say, help me. But how do we provide that help in the most effective way? And what might we be thinking ahead on forms of on-site information on who this person was, whose name is now, or may well be on that site? So those are my two questions. And thank you, as always, Ms. Limpy, for what you do for making the best of our troubled history and finding ways to deal productively with it.
Ms. Limpy?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, we had evacuations in Lame Deer. We actually had two fires that evacuated two of our communities. Lame Deer's the largest community on our reservation. And we were under evacuation order and we didn't have work for like a whole week, and we just came back on Monday. So we're really behind on a lot of things here in my office, but I know the tribe is still really trying to get organized again. And a lot of the people who assist me on working with this and whatnot have been very busy with that. And so, yeah, it's about, I guess, 70% contained. It's raining. It's going to be raining for 2 days, which is great. So
Good, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and any thoughts you have on these issues of helping non-Indian folks with pronunciation, and also the notion of what we might be thinking ahead on of having a plaque that would convey to people on the site visiting that place who place is named after.
yeah, I do know that there might be a more simple way to rewrite her name. I don't know. I would have to contact our local college here just to make sure when the final proposal goes through that we have the correct spelling for everything. And also to do more research on her background so that we can make sure the information is correct for the billboards and plaques, or however she's going to be represented when signage does go up. So I know that that's probably another working group that we would have to create after the name change is passed. And so I think our primary focus right now is just making sure that this is something that is carried forward, and then we'll do collaborative efforts on making sure that her story is told in as the fewest words possible, probably. So.
Great, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any further questions for Ms. Limpy? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Limpy, we really do appreciate you joining us today, and pray that all works well and everybody is safe with the fires. And then
Hey, Velma Fisher to the chambers. Velma Fisher, thank you.
And then we will be considering this at our next meeting, which is currently scheduled for October. And of course, my calendar I'm sorry, not October, September 16th, again at 8 a.m. So we will work with you to make sure that you are aware and available for that consideration on that date.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right. And also one final note, when I first started working on this, that was a pronunciation that I got from some of our other language speakers here, but I just want to make sure that I'll double check again to make sure that it's correct. But I do know that that's how it's spelled, the way it's pronounced, but I know our language has been updated recently, so let me try to call somebody to make sure, and then I'll notify whomever I have to send it in if it does need to be changed.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Okay, with that now, board members, we can continue to work through this, or we can open this up for public comment at this moment. Is there any preference? Representative Benavides?
I see others waiting to speak to this, so perhaps we should let them speak.
Okay, perfect. So I'm sorry, Dr. Way, was that a thumbs up?
Yes, a thumbs up. That's what I meant to show.
Okay.
I agree.
Perfect. So we will go ahead and open up for public comment here. Simply raise your hand if you would like to have public comment. We will identify you as they come in, and Ms. Abad will also help me out with that. Commissioner Wheelock, I believe you had the first hand raised, so good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear that in Clear Creek County, because we also represent the local stakeholders who live there, we spent about the last year going through making a pretty exhaustive project out of this, including meeting with members of the multiple tribes, Northern and Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho, about this subject and other similar subjects in the area. We have invited some of them to our meetings and had 2 different meetings, and where they have brought educational opportunities to our public, which we publicly announced, to explain the historical and cultural significance of both the current word as well as the history of Owl Woman, Mistahet, and then inviting local and public written comment, and then holding 2 very well noticed meetings, including a town hall dedicated to the subject where we took additional public comment. The public comment we received was both resident and non-resident Clear Creek County. It was overwhelmingly in support of the change. It was not unanimous. There's nothing you can do. You can't offer free marshmallows to your public without getting some complaints. So not everyone's going to agree, but it was by and large probably 95% supportive of the name change. And after that process, the Board of County Commissioners unanimously agreed to support this proposal, and we urge you to move forward with it as well. And we do have a resolution of support that we wrote, which explains some of the history, and particularly the history of the woman after whom the proponents have suggested. And we have, when I describe this, it sounds like we're leading. The fact is we were contacted by others, and we recognize that I think on a subject like this, it's really our place to follow and learn. And that's what we have tried to do in inviting people we consider to also be our constituents, who are the ancestral homeland stakeholders of this place where this mountain exists. And I don't know that we need to burden this conversation with that resolution today, but it's there. And I noticed when I read through your packet that there was a lot of that kind of stuff that was missing. So I'm going to get with my staff and make sure that everything that we did has been sent to you, that documents the process we went through to build and understand what that local position would be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, one last thing. I think Ms. Tahet, Owl Woman was married to William Bent, one of the founders of Bent's Fort. She acted as an interpreter because she was bi or trilingual and was able to help broker conversations between the Native American community that was resident in the area, the people who were traveling through and settling, and it was a point of trade. And so the reason she's recognized is through her interpretation between those different parties. She was able to help maintain peace, where Bent's Fort was a place where you could feel safe regardless of who you were most of the time. And because of that, she represented something completely different than was going on, which you talked about earlier and heard about from Representative Benavidez regarding, for example, the Evans Proclamation. She represented the antithesis of that. And that's, I think, the main reason she's been chosen for that replacement name.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions for Commissioner Wheelock, board members? Okay. Thank you for being here. Now, as I'm kind of working through the order here, Riley Hutchings, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. My public comment is just to urge you to change the name of S Mountain, and I will not pronounce the name that people on this call are asking that it be changed to, but I ask that it be changed to that, the one that starts with an M. And the reason for that is because having such a derogatory name for a mountain, like it's a universal slur against Indigenous women, and it's really tied to violence against Indigenous women who currently are killed at a rate 10 times that of the national average. I live in Colorado Springs, and in Colorado Springs, at least two women that we know of, Indigenous women named Cherie Barker and Agnes Jerry Foland, have been murdered. So it's a very real issue that we face, and to continue having this racist and derogatory name upheld continues that violence against Indigenous women. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Riley. Any questions, board members? Okay, appreciate you being here. Greg Liverman, did I pronounce that right?
You pronounced it exactly correctly. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I live in Teller County, the location of one of those other S mountains, which a proposal is moving through separately, that overlooks Victor, Colorado, a traditional gold mining town down here. But I want to talk to you about this particular mountain today. We should not keep place names that are derogatory to any of our people in the United States, period, end of story. As Riley said, as had been said many times in this meeting, and in the spirit of the rescinding of Governor Evans's proclamation so many years ago that was done this week, moving forward to change the name of this mountain to Mestahe is absolutely the right thing to do, and we should move forward with doing it quickly. There was some conversation here, and I think that's very valid about bundling these like name changes and moving them through as a package. I think there might be an exception here to put forward a statement and move this one forward immediately and as a single decision, to put a stake in the ground and a sense of direction for where the state of Colorado wants to move in the spirit of changing the proclamation that Evans made so many years ago, that we in Colorado are seeking to acknowledge what's happened in the past and move forward with a spirit of togetherness into the future, where we are not supporting derogatory names for anybody. And naming it after this particular individual, who, as was talked about by the commissioner from Clear Creek County, as being a bridge between two worlds in the 19th century at Bent's Fort, between the Western European and the Native American world. Having her name on this mountain is a symbol for our intent to move forward in partnership between our communities. So I urge you to make this name change. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Any questions, board members? Okay, thank you. And with that, up next, Daniel Mondragon. Did I pronounce that right, or is it Mondragon?
Good morning. My name is Daniel Mondragon.
Okay.
I live in Arvada in Jefferson County. I was thrilled to be able to learn about this effort happening. I have not been involved with any organizations, just a citizen, and just wanted to be here today to voice my support for the name change. I have to go with the gentleman who just spoke and just say ditto to everything he said quite eloquently, to move from a derogatory name to one that celebrates one who sought to bring communities together is feels like a no-brainer. So Mestahe, Owl Woman, is a wonderful name for the mountain. I do wish to say that as one who is a lifelong Coloradoan, one whose family have been in what is now Southern Colorado and Northern New Mexico, for as far as I know, back to the 1700s, and I have to continue my research to see how much more back. I am mindful of the diversity within myself that I have within me: European, Spanish, Irish, French, Portuguese, and then Native. Unfortunately, because of the erasure of Europeans, of Native peoples, I have no knowledge directly and need to research how can I find out that part of me that has been lost by the Spanish speakers of my ancestors. I celebrate the Spanish, my Spanish background. I appreciate places like Spanish Peaks in Orfano County. And so can be proud of that, as well as the name of our state, and at the same time lament the erasure of names of what Native peoples have called places in Colorado, and to move forward at a time where we can stand together and lift each other up and celebrate one another. This is a part of that effort, and it will be incumbent upon all of us to stand strong against voices who will inevitably speak up to denounce efforts to move together as one community. So not only do I urge you to think about adopting this resolution, moving forward with the name change, and be prepared to stand, we as allies, side by side, not one group standing for another group, but standing side by side as brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any questions? Thank you for taking the time. Appreciate you. I've got Tim. And Tim, is that Tim Swales?
Hey, yep, that's me.
Good morning.
Hey, morning. Yeah, I just wanted to get on. I know I'm usually talking about Mount Blue Sky, but this one is important too, and I definitely support it changing from, yeah, S-word mountain to Mestaje, and I think it kind of falls pretty well into the purview of the board, and it seems a bit more straightforward than the previous reservoirs, because this word is offensive. It has been offensive, and there's sort of no other, I don't know, it's not offensive kind of in any context, both contemporarily or historically. So I think it fits the board's kind of mission. And yeah, I think she's a great replacement name, Mestaje, and I realize that pronunciation, I think, could be kind of a hurdle, but I think it can also be an opportunity for folks to learn like a Cheyenne word. I mean, how many folks in Colorado kind of know a Cheyenne word? I think it's an opportunity rather than kind of a hurdle. And yeah, I'd also bring up that she was inducted into the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame, I believe, in the 80s. So she is like, you know, she's not kind of a new person that people are talking about. People have respected her, for a while. And yeah, that's what I had. Thanks very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. Board members, any questions? Great, thank you for being here. Next up is Jesse Nett with the Forest Service. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jesse Nett. I'm the Regional Cartographer and Geographic Names Advisor for the Rocky Mountain region here at the Forest Service. We cover Colorado as one of the states that we oversee. And I just wanted to thank everybody on the board for bringing this proposal up. This is a priority for us at the region. This has been on our radar for quite some time. We've done significant outreach and work with Ms. Limpy and Susan Johnson, our Regional Tribal Relations Program Manager as well, did significant outreach on this proposal, and we are poised to move forward. So we would like to offer our support with renaming this feature, and just appreciate bringing this up earlier in your agenda, because we would like to move forward with this proposal.
Great, thank you. Any questions, board members? Okay, appreciate you being here. Next we have Tess Doherty. Good morning. Tess, if you want to unmute yourself there you go. Good morning.
Sorry about that. Hi there. I just wanted to, thanks for having us today and for bringing this forward. I think it's long overdue. Colorado has a history of colonization and displacement that we're battling here in Denver, and I think that history is preserved in many ways, and a name on the map is not history. It's a name, and so it's important that we change these names that are not just derogatory; they're offensive. It's a re-traumatization of a genocidal past, and so it's important that we are are recognizing that and acknowledging it. And in a time when history is literally under attack and trying to be, so many people are trying to rewrite it, it says a lot about people who are working so hard to erase their history. What does that say about the history? And so I think it's important that we honor and we acknowledge the trauma that that continues and the continued colonization in Colorado. And so I would, people have fought back in multiple ways in other states to the changing of names and saying that, we need to come together. And to that, I would just say that, this is not, recognizing oppression is not divisive. It is what it can bring us together when we recognize a shared history that needs to be recognized and a harm that needs to be healed and needs to be acknowledged. So I just urge you to pass this. I think the other thing that I was going to say is just that, one of the remnants of this colonial past is people calling themselves Colorado natives when they're not card-carrying members of any tribe, and they don't. There's no indigenous tribe that has claimed them. So I think that that's also something just to keep in mind, that we everyday conversational, things that people say that are even offensive. And so this would be the very least we could do. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for taking the time to join us and register your comments. Board members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on, we've got Rick Williams up next. Good morning.
Midako yapi, lela betaki lila wastelo. Lakota imachiapi tatlanka hohaska, na mila haska imachiapi, Rick Williams. I represent the people of the Sacred Land. It's a group of people who were instrumental and were behind the rescission of the proclamation a couple of days ago. And our voice is that we are very supportive of the name change. We are very supportive of the actions, and it's an honorable thing to do. And we need more of that in our country.
Thank you, and thank you for your role in the proclamation rescinding that happened the other day. Board members, any questions? Okay, thank you. And up next we have David Hagan, if I pronounced that correctly. Good morning.
Good morning, David Hagan. Thank you for letting me speak today. I am in Denver, formerly stolen land from the Arapaho and Cheyenne and 45 other indigenous tribes. I'm in favor of changing the name. I got involved in this through my partner. We found out who Evans was and started to wonder why we had a mountain and a street named after him in Denver. And then that moved into this particular mountain. And for me, it's just like if we were going to name a mountain the S word, talking about women, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, just as this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And to name a mountain like Hitler Mountain wouldn't make sense. So why do we have a mountain named Evans Mountain? So I think that I'm behind any and all changes that try to do the right thing based on our history. And that's kind of all I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Board members, any questions? Next, we have, is it just Jacine Weingard? Did I pronounce that right? You're on mute.
Yes, Jacine Weingard. Hi. I just lived in Clear Creek County for 17 years. So these mountains were our backyard. And I think just working with a lot of Indigenous the last couple of years, this is really powerful renaming, not just, it just looks like a name, but it's a lot more than that. We can't go back and change history, but we have a chance to work together and make a better future for everyone by doing this together. And it really opens the door for education to learn what really happened. Every time a mountain is renamed, everybody looks back and learns more. And I think that gives an opportunity to do that. It acknowledges all the generational trauma that has occurred, and just puts it out there for everybody that we're acknowledging what has happened. We want to learn more about what's happened, and allows that time and space needed for healing. There are painful place names all over the country, and I hope that communities are really able to work together like this, tribal and non-tribal, to get these changed all over the country. I think it's powerful to work together after the pain of the past. So I fully support this proposal, and I thank you all for your time discussing this and making movement on these proposals. So thank you.
Thank you for your time. Board members, any questions? Okay, thank you. And next I have Renee Millard Chacon. Did I pronounce that right? Renee, there you
No, sorry, running to my mute button.
are. Perfect. Did I pronounce your name right? Correct me, please.
No worries. It's Renee Millard Chacon.
Great.
I'm the
Thank you.
Program Development Coordinator at Spirit of the Sun, the Youth Program Coordinator. We're an Indigenous woman-led nonprofit that teaches specifically cultural education and resiliency and how to use it in transformative education in the modern identity. It is true, we cannot go back to the way things were, but in the modern identity, we are still here on the land of the Ute, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, the Lakota, the Kiowa, and 48 tribes that we document, that we work with directly, from food shares to farming, to social services, to many different forms. Renaming and reclaiming sacred spaces is the first step towards honestly understanding restorative justice and land back narratives. This is whole cultures and identities, we are not monolithic, that have been erased from Colorado and its landscape. And to honestly understand that now is the time to restore, to reclaim, and to have that type of justice can heal so many spaces and bring back a lot of communities that have always been deserving of this form of justice. So I really honestly thank you and honor you for taking this time and understanding how much it can heal. But I hope that you take the steps in understanding what it means to protect and continue these steps in renaming, reclaiming, and these land back initiatives and cultural education, transformative education, to honestly heal spaces that have been called S Mountain for so long. Communities have been going around these mountains. These are sacred spaces to many communities too. And to now see that they can have names changed for our future generations, it's incredibly crucial for past generations' long fights to have just our representation met and to have our needs met. So I work with Shannon Francis at Spirit of the Sun, and she is an elder that has worked for a really long time with Indigenous elders that have fought this space for everything, and yet they're still fighting for different things like food share, a space to live in Colorado, and to honor themselves in Colorado. So this is a way that I hope that we can also bring back Indigenous communities that have been choked out and flushed out of Colorado to truly honor and reclaim their spaces. And I thank you for any steps that you take going forward in understanding how this can also heal where there's been environmental degradation, and why a lot of the erasure was initially even founded for the resources and sources of life underneath, so that, again, Indigenous identity and communities can live on in these spaces and be included in these spaces and ultimately have land back. So thank you. I thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, we also provided a Spirit of the Sun panel on this with the artist, George Curtis Levy, who is also Cheyenne and Arapaho. And we have it on our platform at spiritofthesun.org for more information. And there are so many other initiatives also in Colorado that need and deserve their lands named and reclaimed in the way that they should have always been honored. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Board members, any questions? Thank you. Next, we have Lucy Molina. I'll let you unmute yourself there.
Buenos dias. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes.
Thank you all for, thanks to all of you for this opportunity to speak, and to everyone that just spoke. I'm so moved. by everyone. Thanks to Spirit of the Sun for their work and everybody that collaborated in this. I strongly agree with this. This is amazing, even as an Indigenous woman. It's hopeful. I want to, thank even this board and this space for allowing this opportunity of, like it's a way for redemption also. I do personally, I identify with her because I am also part of two different worlds, right? And even thinking of her life, she would just be perfect even to be honored today. It is time. Like Ms. Tess said, it's long overdue. And again, I strongly agree with and support this name change. And it gives hope for people like me and people in my community. I live in Commerce City, in the area of Denver, also here by the Sand Creek. So this is very meaningful for us here, especially facing the environmental injustices that our communities have faced long ago and until now, just like Renee has mentioned. So again, thank you for this opportunity. I hope that Colorado is pioneers actually from now on in bringing restorative justice and name change totally. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. And what a great honor, honestly. Gracias. Dios los bendiga.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you here in your comments. Appreciate that. Board members, any questions? Seeing none. Next, Liz Stolniker. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did. I am here representing the board for the group renamed Stapleton for All from Denver. Today is actually the first anniversary of the vote that our Property Owners Association took to rename our neighborhood, which was named after Benjamin Stapleton, who was the Denver mayor, who was a member of the Ku Klux Klan, to remove his name from our community and rename us Central Park. So I'm here representing the board to speak our strong support for the Mistahe Coalition's proposal to remove the derogatory name of S Mountain and replace it with the new name. Our group is made up of all Denver residents who were involved in the movement to rename our neighborhood in order to remove the name of a Klansman from our community. And we can attest to both the pain of offensive toponyms and the healing that can begin through renaming. Our organization firmly believes in the importance of facing the truth about our history and the importance that names hold in our communities. We recognize that renaming a mountain is just one step, but it is an essential one that we must all take in a longer journey toward healing and reconciliation between our Indigenous neighbors and the state of Colorado. We urge everyone to take this first step together in that journey by renaming the mountain. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Board members, any questions? Okay, thank you. Seeing none. Next up, we have Jan. Good morning.
Yate bina she ya Jan irony na she kitachini na shne to kitlini bashichin tachini da shedo tachini da shanele akota the net sun shle. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jan Iron, and I am Diné, or Navajo, as we are called. I am a visitor in Fort Collins. I have been for the past 40 plus years. This is the land of the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, the Ute, the Lakota, the Pawnee. There's so many other tribes that have passed through here. I acknowledge that and really appreciate this opportunity just to just support this effort. I am a mother, I'm a grandmother, and to know that this mountain was desecrated with this name really saddens me. And I really appreciate the efforts to change the name to something more appropriate. And I have grandchildren, I have granddaughters, that are Cheyenne. And I am very proud of all my children, my grandchildren. And I have lived here in this community for all these years and have tried my best to maintain our culture, our languages. My husband was Pawnee and Crow, and we did our best to do what we could to teach our traditions and culture to all the many schools that we were invited to. Lots of elementary schools have invited us over the years, and they don't know about Colorado history. They don't know that Native Americans, or they have learned that Native Americans were part of their Colorado history, but they didn't know that they still existed to this day. They didn't know that my grandchildren, my children were part of their school communities. And it's really sad to see that and to know that. And we did our best over the years to teach that. And we have a powwow here in Fort Collins, which actually we had to cancel again this year because of the pandemic. But I really support these kind of efforts to show honor and to respect our elders and to our ancestors that were so strong and persevered all the different things that they were subjected to, and yet they survived. And to this day, you know, we're trying our best to make them proud and then try to do something, you know, for our children, our grandchildren. So this morning, I just want to thank you all for this. It's just common sense to do this. There should be no arguments against this. And I really urge you just to pass it through with no hesitation, because it's only right. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Jan, we appreciate your comments. Board members, any questions? Thank you. Next up, we have Susan Johnson. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me to make some comments. My name is Susan Johnson, and I am the Regional Tribal Relations Program Manager for the Rocky Mountain region of the U.S. Forest Service. I am also a tribal member of the 3 affiliated tribes, Arikara, Hidatsa, and Mandan. It's my pleasure to be here. I've been working with the agency for upwards of 20 years. It's good to see some familiar faces, Rick and Jenny, my colleague Jesse. We've started off as field-going biologists, entered into the tribal relations program early on when I saw that there was really a need to help bridge the gap between land management and traditional cultural uses and the identity of Indigenous people in the landscape, traditional ecological knowledge, so forth and so on. Now, let me just share what I wanted to talk about today. When we got the portfolio, we worked very closely with the National Board of Geographic Names and Jenny and our representative in the Washington office. One of the things that was very critical to us is we really have a platform of trying to rid ourselves of these derogatory names. And as an Indigenous woman, as you can see, that is one of my personal and professional agendas. So I was really happy to be able to reach out to the tribes and get as many of them and us invested in moving this thing forward. Working on this about 4 years, and we've come to this point now, which is very gratifying. I do want to address the fact that once this is adopted and it moves forward by the Colorado Board of Geographic Names and it goes up to USGS, there will be very focused, concerted effort to do a good job of integrating a collaborative attitude towards the interpretation, that to correct spelling, opportunities to hear the word is auditory and is phonetically presented from the tribes. So that is our endeavor. I think that this showcases the collaborative nature and the importance of getting tribes engaged early on, and all of the citizens to promote and understand that names matter. The interesting thing is, I would just share this as my experience of working with tribes and tribal consultation over the past 20-25 years, is that I'm going to give you an example. The Tongue River up in Montana, Wyoming is, we know it is the Tongue River, but the origin of that name has been diverted and interpreted poorly. But essentially the origin is of on the plains observing the male bison waking up in the morning and coming to this draw to have his morning water. That essentially is what got distilled down into the Tongue River. And I share this with you because there is so much beauty in the indigenous names of the landscapes, and we've distilled it down to one name, but there the indigenous people named it as it is represented in an experience or in a vision. So I just wanted to share that with you, as this board may see, in fact, other offerings of the beauty that the indigenous people saw their landscapes. So very happy to be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to make some comments.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your comments. Board members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. Shauna, please unmute yourself, and good morning.
Hi, thank you for this time. My name is Shauna Jacobs. I'm calling from Utah, and I consider myself an ally. I support the name change of S Mountain to Mistawe. It's an opportunity to make things right. Names do matter. A good name can bring healing to the local region. It can bring healing to the local culture, and it can bring healing to our nation as a whole. Thank you. I support this name change.
Thank you for your comments. Board members, any questions? Next, Christy Douglas, go ahead and unmute yourself. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I wasn't expecting this morning. My name is Christy Douglas, and I am from Commerce City. And I'm, as I said, speaking off the cuff, but I would also like to echo what other people have said, and I'm in total support of the name change. Some of the other people came up with analogies that I hadn't thought of before. Like, there's so many colonizers here in Colorado who see themselves as native, and we just don't understand how derogatory that is. How self-righteous is that of us to think that we own that when we don't? I grew up in South Dakota, and it has a rich, rich native history and culture that has been totally disregarded. And then I come to Colorado and I see the same thing happening here. I've just never realized how offensive some of our choices have been. And I know that we can't go back and change history. It is what it is. But we do need to teach this in schools, and we do need to start recognizing the travesties of the past, and we have to teach it in a way so that history is not repeated. I have my family, I'm white, but my family is Black. And one time my grandson came to me and he told me a story about another little boy in grade school that demoralized him by saying, you know, my people used to own your people as slaves, and so I can still tell you what to do. You have no idea how that broke my heart. And that's why we have to teach this in the schools. This is because it's not being taught in homes. Parents, where did that child learn that? He learned it from his parents. And this kind of stuff is being passed down from generation to generation. And that's why the United States of America cannot move past the cultural division that has been created through genocide, through slavery, all of this. And yes, I am emotional about this. And I loved hearing Jan speak with such great passion about this. And Renee Chacon and Lucy Molina and other allies. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak my piece. I really appreciate it. As I said, we cannot change the travesties of the past, but this is the best way I know that we can apologize. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Board members, any questions? Okay, next we have Kelly Brown. Good morning. Go ahead and take yourself off mute.
Resident of Clear Creek County on traditional Cheyenne and Arapaho lands. I'm also a representative of the Evergreen Coalition for Racial Justice. And as Brandy said at the beginning, over the past year, we've had an amazing opportunity, and we've really been blessed by the Spirit of the Sun and the Mestahe Coalition, and had a lot of opportunities for education and for dialogue. And as a member of Clear Creek County, as a member of this community, and on behalf of the Evergreen Coalition for Racial Justice, we wanted to just voice our support for the name change. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Board members, any questions? And next we have JD Roybal. Did I pronounce that correctly? Go ahead and take yourself off mute. Good morning.
Good morning. Mañana a todas. I'm actually speaking to you from the original lands of the Chetechicoan, the Arapaho, the Ute, and the Cheyenne. I hesitated to actually speak today, but I thought I'd do the same exercise because this just happened just yesterday. And as we have this conversation about name change, it's amazing how some are sensitized to names and others aren't. Now, we're all adults here. Now, so when I'm going to do an exercise here, and the people that have actually done this with me before, just hang with me. My mom's Black, so when I say these words, know that it is my family. Yo soy mexicano también. So understand what this is an exercise. I'm going to say some words, and I'm going to pause for a moment. And I want you to reflect on what you're feeling with those words. Nigger. Spick. Squaw. What I've actually found is some people are actually affected by two of the words, and the other one that they just kind of like, and because it's amazing. No, I'm not going to speak. I want everybody just to contemplate what just happened. Names really, truly do matter. Buenos días a todos. I appreciate being here.
Thank you for your comments. Board members, any questions? Next, we have Kate. Good morning. Go ahead and take yourself off mute.
I think you hit your button twice, Kate. You're still muted.
Kate, we're still on mute there. I don't know if Miss Abad, if you're able to unmute Kate, or that might be something she has to do on her end.
I can give it a shot. She just sent a chat. Give me 1 minute.
Okay. Oops, did we just, while we're waiting, I saw, it looks like Kate might have just bounced off, at least off of my screen.
She's back, Tim. That's her, is Catherine
Oh,
Sonora.
okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Catherine, good morning. Go ahead and please share your comments.
Hi, I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties there. I just want to thank you all for taking the time to consider renaming S Mountain in the Northern Cheyenne proposal. I've had the great opportunity to be a part of the Mistahake Coalition as a volunteer and work with tribal leaders from Northern and Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho, and as well as some folks from the different Ute tribes and the local Indigenous community. And I've learned so much about how important it is to remove this word and the impact that it has in our daily lives on people, you know, as a lot of us white people don't understand the impacts these words can have on the self-esteem of people, on the culture that we build around them. And I think it's wonderful that we are coming to a place of reflecting upon this, and it's important. And I encourage you all to push this through to the federal board so that we can remove this word from this mountain and people can start to feel safe in their communities again, and for people to be able to come home to their homelands and feel safe. And that we continue to work together to evaluate other place names in Colorado that could be having the same effect on Indigenous people and other people of color. So thank you for your time in considering this proposal, and I encourage you to vote yes and move this on to the federal naming board for final consideration. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Board members, any questions? Hearing none and seeing no further public comment, we are scheduled to go to 11 o'clock. With that, I'm sorry, we still have Monica Snowbird. Good morning.
Good morning. I just a quick few seconds. My name is Monica Snowbird. I'm an Anishinaabe. I'm a guest here on this land here in Colorado. I'm the program director for the Hasia Advocate Program. We do domestic violence and sexual assault advocacy for Native survivors in our region. And I'm also on the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives Task Force for Colorado. And I just wanted to basically reiterate what many people here have said much more passionately than I will, that I do hope that this goes through as quickly as possible. Much of the violence that our women face comes from the fact that we are dehumanized and objectified, and that stems from place names like this. So, and it's also violence against our women starts with violence against our land. And when you name our land these ugly slurs like this, it is violence against that land as well. So when our women are healing, a lot of the things that we talk about with our survivors is representation and how they are seen as Indigenous women and the invisibility of Indigenous women across our region. And a lot of times when we look at why place names like this have been allowed to exist for so long, it's because our people are invisible and unfortunately many times in non-native cultures. So we just support this as an agency and as a coalition, and we do hope that this gets passed through as quick as possible. And I would like to thank everyone on the call, especially Rick Williams and Renee and many of the others who have been working for so long to make this happen.
Thank you for your comments. Board members, any questions? Okay, I see next we have, is it Ayana Rael? Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Good morning.
Raw, but
Raw. Thank you.
so I didn't expect to speak, but I agree with everything that's been said. All the things about the feminine and everything. I work with a group to bring Indigenous ways back to the forest, to protect the sanctuary forest, and to promote Indigenous voices, because I think it's crucial for the future to be viable at all. And I just want to make a comment about beauty and sound. I'm a sound and movement artist. The name that's being proposed is so beautiful and it has so much space in it. And I think that the best function of art is that it can open people's brain cells. I mean, to change, people have to change. And the power of this sound, of this word that is being proposed is so strong and so beautiful. And I think it will help everybody. And especially people who aren't used to speaking other languages. It will be, it's, as the gentleman said earlier, it's an opportunity. And I think it's a very powerful. I'm not, I'm Canadian citizen. I'm from Anishinaabe territory, living on Ute land here in Colorado. So I don't have any clout, but but the power of sound and naming is so enormous. I just want to underline that and totally support everything that's been said today. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any questions? Seeing none, Randall Bays, good morning.
Halito, Timatukma, okay, Sahotifo Randall. Hello, I hope you're all well. My name is Randall. I'm from the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. I grew up mostly in Oklahoma and I came here 3 years ago. I work for the Denver Public Library System, and myself and along with a committee are working on changing one of our library's names from Byers, which was from a newspaper owner who wrote for the Colorado News and was influential in creating a terrible, terrible time for the people that survived Sand Creek. And so we're looking to change the name in honor of the Cheyenne and Arapaho and other peoples that had lived across these lands, the Ute, Paiute, etc. And I'm in full support of the changing of this mountain's name. But I did have a question. I wanted to know the proper way to pronounce this Cheyenne word and its meaning, if anyone could offer up any information on that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. And just to clarify again, Miss Limpy, are you still available? Just I'll let you take that question if you are.
Oh, yes, I'm still on the call.
Thank you. Please, Ms. Randall was asking about the correct pronunciation in the meeting.
Ms. Stahet, we sort of associate the L with like a bad spirit or like a bad omen. So for us, Mista is like a spirit, and then Het is woman. So Mista Het, sort of like owl woman. That's the best translation that I guess you can say for her name and the meaning behind it. So it's pretty straightforward.
Great, thank you. And thank you for your comments, Randall. Okay, are there any further comments? Seeing no hands raised, we will close public comment. This is not the end of public comment. We will be taking public comment throughout the process, including our next meeting. Also in the chat, I've put the address for the Geographic Naming Board, and comments can also be received through that website. So please take time to submit comments there. Board members, it is 10:45. I know we are scheduled for 11, so I should probably do a time check here and see how long you can hang out, or if we should, if we want to continue to work through what we want to identify here in terms of additional information or outreach. Board, what are you thinking here? Representative Benavides.
Thank you. And I want to thank all the people that came and spoke to this. And I think it really all of our members of the commission to understand, as one of the individuals said, that names are important and they can also bring healing. So as we look at this going forward, but I would also say for the next meeting that is supposed to be our first consideration, that we put both first and final consideration maybe on the same agenda, because I'm not sure how much more we're going to need to make some decision. And for today's meeting, even if we're scheduled to 11, I would think we should at least introduce the other ones, because I think Negro Creek is important, that we talk a little bit about outreach, because I didn't see, I'm very concerned that we didn't reach out to the African-American community with regard to that. So I wouldn't want us putting off the introduction now and considering the outreach for our next meeting, because it puts us off a ways if we don't. So I would hope members could stay on at least for that long.
Representative, would it be fine if we introduced the next two proposals and then we ask board members if there's any additional information that we would like in regards to these, that we email Ms. Abad in the next couple of days to identify what we might be looking at? And might that be one way to handle it? And I see Dr. Way, I'll let you go ahead and respond.
Actually, I wanted to say at this point in the meeting is that two things stood out to me from the public comment. The first is there is, widespread agreement that the name S Mountain should be changed. It is simply the right thing to do. The second thing that stood out to me is that beyond a single name change, all past names that are offensive to people of color should be changed as a matter of principle. And I'd like us to remember those two things as we proceed.
Okay, thank you. Other board members, please go ahead and just take yourselves off mute. I've got you spread out now through 3 pages. Trying to get to you here, but go ahead and speak up. Dr. Limerick, I see you're off mute.
Yes, I guess I've just been joining the chorus of saying there simply isn't anything imaginable of why we would say this is the way to deal with a troubled history. We'll keep the name Squaw. I cannot imagine anything that could pass for a sensible argument to say that. There may be other words that have more subtle and nuanced complications, but this is not one of them. So I am just joining in the chorus that this is, I think Rick Williams used the word honorable in his, well, I'm sure several people did, but when Rick said honorable, I thought that has to be our steering mechanism here. So I don't know, I'm not pushing for it. I mean, I'm fine with it. Let's move this along as expeditiously as we can, because I just cannot see any position put forward that would cause us to say, let's keep this as it is. I'm not able to imagine that. And I do want to say that I think doing the best thing for the cause of pronunciation, which keeps coming up, I think that's important, and it is a learning opportunity, and we should make the most of that. So but I'm with others who have spoken. Dr. Way, Representative Benavides, I can't think of a reason why we could say, well, let's not move too fast on this, or let's not act in haste, or this is something that it's not acting in haste. It's taking decades of not acting properly and ending those decades of not acting properly. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Mr. Benitez, good morning.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is that it seems like we're precedent setting here. I know we have a lot of other peaks that will come forward with this name. And so if I would just, for the record, if we're establishing a standard to address any other peak by the same name, just to be aware of that we can reference this this process, the structure, and the understanding of where we stand on this when we render a decision for this specific instance.
Yeah, you're here.
Thank you. Other board members, Commissioner Chimino, did I see you off mute earlier?
Just trying to get my screen back on page 1, that's all.
Got you back now. Any other board members? Go ahead and take yourself off mute if I don't call you out.
This is Dion Williams on behalf of Director Garcia. Am I allowed to make a comment?
Yes, please.
Just expressing, in relation to the comment about the process and precedent, I think that this is actually an excellent case to set precedent. We've had extensive outreach, clear community support by the impacted communities as well as other members of the state of Colorado. And I think DOLA is very happy to support this and expedite this as much as possible. But I think the process has been pretty sound in getting that input, and so feel very comfortable supporting this.
Thank you. Any other board members? Yes, Representative Benavides.
Actually, I don't think it sets a precedent per se, because we haven't adopted our process. And even though following the process of introduction and first consideration and second consideration, I think I'd initially proposed for our next meeting, putting both first consideration and final consideration, because there's no time frame in even our draft process. So I think it's consistent with how we've been moving on these.
Yeah, I would say it's consistent with the conversation we had about our guideline and collapsing the first and final consideration, and simply have an introductory phase and a consideration phase, and we can work from there. And that gives us an opportunity at the next meeting to take action if we feel we are good to go. So back to my original question here, board members, are we okay just to stick around for a little bit longer? We can introduce the next two proposals. We'll take, I hope we can be, we'll take some public comment, but also as far as the introductory phase, what we can do then is in the next week here, provide any or identify any additional information, feedback, outreach that we need to take, and email that to Ms. Abad. Does that sound okay? Okay, I'm getting thumbs up, it looks like. Representative Exum. I think you're on mute. That's not, yeah, that's lost your microphone, I think.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay. I'm agreeing with what was said, but I have to get to another meeting about 11:45. So, and I know the voting is going to be important. I wanted to weigh in with my vote on this before we end it today.
Okay. And so I don't think that we're necessarily taking a vote for the introductory phase. We'll just identify anything else via email. So moving forward on the agenda, if I've got agreement here with the board, we'll introduce the next two items on the agenda. We've got case number USBGN case number 5184 and 5279, as well as, and I'll just introduce them concurrently here because they're very similar, USBGN case 5280. These are for features located in Delta County. Commissioner Don Soups is my understanding is the proponent on record. This, again, we had two proposals that were submitted, renaming, in this case, Negro Creek to Hops Creek and Clay Creek. The individual that submit the proposal for Hops Creek has agreed with the county commissioners, and so it is now Clay Creek is the consideration. And then for USBGN case 5280, it is to rename Negro Mesa to Clay Mesa in same. So I'm wondering if Commissioner Supes is available right now. If you would just go ahead and unmute yourself or raise your hand. Not seeing the commissioner. He thought he might be able to join us today. We can check back in and we'll make sure that he is aware and available next meeting. With that, is there anybody else here to speak to these cases, particularly that might be associated with the county or the proposal itself? Go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. Is there any public comment? Go ahead and raise your hand if you would like to speak about these. And seeing none right now. Board members, is there any discussion or any comments or anything in regards to these two cases? Representative Benavides.
I guess I just want to reiterate that I feel very strongly on this one, is that I know the county even went to the local high school and they came up with the name of Clay Creek. They did a contest, and that's well and good, but just like the last name, the impact on that community, the indigenous native community in our state from the past one, I would think the African American community felt the most impact from this name, and there was very little outreach to those. And I wish Commissioner Nelson, who works at the Blair Caldwell Library, and maybe talking to her and outreaching. There's an African American West Museum also, and others, that I think we need a little more outreach on this before we make a decision, or and let those communities know that we're considering this.
Okay, very good. We will reach out to Ms. Nelson and look to do some additional outreach to the African American community. Any other comments, board members? Just sorry, I'm flipping through my pages here. Okay, so I think what we've decided is that if there is any additional information that we desire in regards to the proposals, that we will email those and communicate with Ms. Abad over the course of the next week, so we can conduct the additional outreach that is necessary and come prepared for our next board meeting. With that.
Oh, pardon, sorry, could I just had a quick thing.
Oh yes, Dr. Limerick, please.
Yes, if I could just suggest, our university has just created a new Center for African and African American Studies. Yay. And I'm hoping, and I know that the other universities around here have such, I've been a little bit ahead of the University of Colorado in having that. I'm wondering if there's I don't know if this is part of our procedure or should be or could be, but when we have really accomplished scholars, as we do with the new director, Professor Rabaka here, is there any reason to think of making some kind of gesture of engagement with that, for instance, our center at CU, or with other centers at other universities, or is that just adding more information than we needed? Is it? I guess I'm just wondering, when we think about engaging members of the community who are very involved in this, our university-based, college-based people might really be an interesting and valuable group to engage. So just asking.
Okay, board members, any response to that? thoughts, ideas? Representative Benavides.
I agree. I think they would have a wealth of knowledge. I don't recall his name, but there was a professor of African studies from in Greeley, that's UNC, that they're working on the Deerfield project.
Yes.
That has may have a lot of information too. So
Right, Dr. George June at UNC is a wonderful source. So absolutely.
Okay, and then I did see that Mayor Pro Tem Joseph also had some information. She agreed, and then just typed a chat there involve the university and the I'm sorry, just lost the chat. NACCP, Colorado chapter, and also some of the Black churches. So maybe we could enlist some assistance here with Mayor Pro Tem and Dr. Limerick and others in conducting some of this outreach. Mr. Bays, we've closed the public comment phase. I apologize. If you'd like to type something in the chat, we can do that. I want to kind of make sure that we move forward with some of this business. We actually can keep pace here with what we have before us. And then will be welcome to have public comment at our next meetings, or like I said, you can also go on our website and submit them as well. So with that, board members, any other thoughts, ideas, comments regarding this? We will be reaching out on the recommendations here and reaching out to each of you in terms of further assistance. Okay, and with that, we do not have, I'll tell you what, actually, Randall, we actually do have our public general comment as our next agenda item. So we will open up the public comment, and Mr. Bays, please go for it.
I just wanted to share that we have a couple of resources for the Denver Public Library System. We have the Blair Caldwell branch that has a collection and a resource for research for African American studies, as well as the Western History and Genealogy Department in our central library system. So if anyone needs any resources for research, what have you, that's all I had to add.
Great, we appreciate that. We've made note of that, so thank you very much. Any further public comment? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. We do not need executive, I'm sorry, Tess Doherty, please.
Yes, so sorry. Okay, can you hear me? Sorry about that. I just wanted to, I put this in the chat, but I just wanted to acknowledge that there have been, and I'm not against involving universities, but I think I went to DU for 5 years, and it, you know, not once did a professor or anyone mention that the school was founded by John Evans and the history of that. I find that pretty troubling. And so, you know, I think that a general acknowledgement from all of the universities in the Denver metro area is, you know, certainly appropriate and well long overdue. I think, you know, there is a history of universities coming in and pushing out Indigenous communities in Colorado. In DU, John Evans, CSU is proposing to be, is in the National Western proposal that would displace and you know, people in the Globeville, Elyria, Swansea neighborhood. The Auraria campus in the late 1960s and early 70s, you know, that was the oldest neighborhood in Denver, and people were evicted forcefully. And then the CU recently did a land grab with no Indigenous people at the table, and it's dangerous to the environment, and it would hurt to the 200 endangered species that live in that land, and they want to build housing for dignitaries. So I just think that is long overdue as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Board members, any questions? Seeing none, Christy Douglas, go ahead and take yourself off mute.
Yes, thank you. And I do apologize for not having video today. My camera wouldn't work last night and we just couldn't get it to work. So I apologize for that. But again, my name is Christy Douglas. I'm from Commerce City. And I just want to agree with what Tess is saying. I know about the CU land grab that is going on right now. And no one recognizes how important this is to pay attention to, and what they want to do on that land when that land is just, it's a native floodplain and it's one of the last remaining that exists in Colorado. And for them to want to come in and desecrate the land once again is just beyond my comprehension. I don't understand it. And so the Boulder City Council, I believe it was last Monday, did an emergency vote on that. And that, no, it wasn't last Monday, it was a week ago. And then the CU Board of Regents came in and voted for this land grab. And I'm just gonna call it what it is, just so they can make more money off of it. And I just don't understand where this thinking comes from, that money is above all else. And it has nothing to do with recognizing what we're doing to our land. Right now, we're going through a climate crisis that nobody is recognizing, and it's all because of money. So what Tess is bringing up right now is really important. We have to understand our history and what we've done in the past, and we just keep repeating it in the name of power and money, and it has to stop. So really appreciate the fact that you are still taking public comments, and I just wanted to throw that out there, because if no one talks about it, no one's going to know about it. You can't do anything about something that you don't know about.
Great, thank you. Board members, any questions? Okay, seeing no further public comment, we will close public comment. We do not have executive session. So our next meeting is will be September 16th at 8 a.m., 8 to 11 a.m. Any further board member comment? Representative Exum, I saw you put something in the chat there. Anything you would like to say?
Yes, thank you. I just put in another contact for information. Candace McKnight of the African American Historical and Genealogical Society of Colorado Springs is would be another good contact regarding what we're doing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any further board members, final closing thoughts, remarks? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Got a motion.
On each other here. This is interesting.
I second Dr. Way's motion.
There we go. Okay. Got a motion to adjourn. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. I appreciate you all hanging in there, and appreciate very much the members of the public that took time to join us today and for the public testimony. Really appreciate you. It is so important to this process. So thank you, take care, and we will see everybody next month. We stand adjourned.